Hey folks, Jacob Walton here. Welcome to episode 3 of our audio commentary tracks where we look into episode 3, Calling Mark. And on this episode, we feature Mark from Real Talk. If you get a chance to check out his channel and his social media pages, check the link down below in the description pages and go support and subscribe to him. He does a terrific job. He's an excellent content provider for anything's updated on Saw and past Saw retrospectives and stuff like that. I've been on his channel numerous of times, all updating all the way back to 2017 with Saw retrospectives and thoughts on any of the events from Jigsaw and Spiral and Saw X. Mark just does a terrific job, so if you get a chance to go subscribe to all of his content down below, please do so. As well as follow us on our Patreon pages at patreon.com/thejigsaw-blogs, where you can get an exclusive early access to all our commentary tracks 1 week in advance before they go out on YouTube. Having said all that, let's get into episode 3, Calling Mark. So now we're looking at going to be October 30th, 2017. So this has been a couple days after the events of the 2017 Jigsaw film. And that little boom mic you see right there. Fun fact, that boom mic that I got on Wish.com for like 20 bucks, it doesn't work. It still doesn't work to this day. Skype. And the reason why I decided to go with Skype because, I was the type of kid that always used Skype. Even to 2018, I should have used stuff like Discord. It's just so much better. But I went with Skype just for story purposes and stuff like that. Plus the audio soundtrack and Skype with them there. And how did I get Mark? So basically Mark was just a friend of mine on YouTube. I reached out to his channel in 2017 to be a part of it. He does a good job. And I told him, I think this is filmed in June, I want to say, of 2020. And I told him I was doing a Saw YouTube series, and he was totally on board and decided to do it. And this is the first episode where we kind of go off script, basing off a regular script, rather than just him and I talking on a camera, on and off. And I think one of the comments people told us was that, man, our acting was just so wooden, and the editing, camera cuts back and forth. This is pretty much me testing the waters, because this is the first time I've done on-screen acting in years and stuff like that. And this is the first time I actually wrote, I typed an actual script that I sent to Mark, and he put his input into it as well. And as you see right here, we're answering questions that people have from the 2017 Jigsaw film, because I knew essentially, what the point of this series was at the time was to answer all the unanswered questions that Saw fans have. And right now we're going over details of the events of the 2017 Jigsaw film, where Mark and Jacob are interacting and talking about all the events that happened on film. And we're trying to answer many questions, such as, how did the Edgar Munson get in Jigsaw's grave? How was Logan able to do that? And not to mention all the bodies that were found by Keith and Halloran. James Gomez, the guy that was in the meat grinder, Malcolm Neal, the guy that was in Buckethead that was seen over the bridge. Like I said, we're talking about all the other stuff right here. And like I said, we just come up with the answers for the audience. So if you had questions on Saw movies, like what happened to this character, then this is a way for our series to answer those questions for you. And I think one of the questions that we talked about was, in canon, how do you dress Mark Hoffman? Well, so basically, people got to remember, while we're answering questions from the Saw fans and what happened to what characters and what happened to what events, this is in the Saw timeline. So this is based off information that people, like a school teacher, would know. People would know, obviously, Logan's a Jigsaw apprentice, or Dr. Gordon was a Jigsaw accomplice and stuff like that. People don't know that because it hasn't been publicly mentioned in any of the Saw movies yet. We just go by what the public would know in the Saw universe. And so we created this character of Mark, who is one of the people on the Jigsaw Rules website that, he's an expert on all Jigsaw's mythology and all the events and experts. So kind of like one of those Zodiac killer experts. Mark is the character where he's a Jigsaw killer expert. He knows all the history, he knows all the connections, he knows the philosophies and stuff like that. And here we address Mark Hoffman, and we kind of vaguely say, the police found the footage of the bathroom, because keep in mind, Saw 1, there's that camera in the bathroom, and that's how they were able to access footage from the bathroom, and it posted on jigsawrules.com. So people online know what happened in the Saw bathroom, just based off that camera, but we decided to say, the police haven't found the bathroom yet as of this continuity back in 2020 during the 2017 Jigsaw film. If Saw 11, or if they do address in the future. Say they found the bathroom, we'll go from there. But during this timeline, we'll go from what we see right here. And fun fact, you can tell which were reshoots. Look at the far left corner, that green poster in the corner. Like, that was a reshoot one. There's other takes where you see the green posters in the background and it's not. This was filmed in my wife's arts and craft room. My computer was stationed in the corner of the room. They can see the green posters gone right now. So you can see the kind of the editing mistakes they have right there. And like I said, one of the things, people said, the acting was wooden. And a lot of the comments in our videos said the acting was like too wooden. And it's a fair point, because this is my first time, trying to act with script and line dialogue. We just did old school tactics where, I record a line, then I listen to Mark do his line, and we would just edit back and forth the tapes. Is it choppy? Sure, but again, it's me, testing the waters because this is my first time working on editing something, and I would get better through time, but I think it was just practice at the time. And we're going to talk about the organ donor right now. So, who is the organ donor? Well, at the time of recording this, we recorded this back in 2020 in June, and we didn't have an answer who the organ donor was because Spiral hadn't came out just yet. So we decided to leave the organ donor blank, and we don't want to answer the question just yet on who the organ donor is, because right now, as we go on, if you've seen episode 19 in Full Disclosure Report, we revealed the organ donor was William Shank. And William Shank could serve as the organ donor at this time right there, or he could serve as a alibi as the organ donor. So, having said that, could the identity of the organ donor change throughout Season 2? Possibly. But we mentioned that organ donor and we mentioned ST. And of course, a lot of people figure out now, if they've seen episode 20, ST is actually Scott Tibbs, and we mentioned that Scott Tibbs was in fact a part of the Jigsaw Rules website, and I'll go on details in a later episode in the commentaries about the whole Scott Tibbs reveal, but we planted the seeds for Scott Tibbs being involved in the Jigsaw Rules website way back in episode 3. So we'll get more on Scott in another bit. I just want to compliment Mark. You can see right now as he's talking, this is all Mark right here. This is no script. I just told him, it's like, there'll be a point in script, but I want you to just tell us your feelings about the Jigsaw Rules, why you're a fan, because Mark is very knowledgeable in real life about the Saw franchise, as is Mark the character, and I try to keep it more ground true to him, and he does a really good job in his delivery. And like I said, we talk about the Jigsaw Rules website here, how it's divided into 2 parts. There's a trap section and there's a forum page section. Jacob and Mark's characters would have been more of the forum interacting, talking about Jigsaw philosophies and trap victims and stuff like that, and fascinated by the histories and philosophies of Jigsaw. And there's the other section of the Jigsaw Rules website, which would talk about the traps and how they were made. And we mentioned like E. Bonneville. Of course, that's a wink and a nod to Eleanor Bonneville from Jigsaw, who's one of my favorite characters in the entire franchise, and I hope that the series come back and addresses her again. But yeah, this is a great delivery by Mark right here, and mentioned from there. We go on, and we talk about the box later, coming up a little bit. We're still talking about the Jigsaw Rules website right here, and it's a little callback to House of Jigsaw and stuff like that. And we mentioned more names from House of Jigsaw, like Vic 360 and stuff like that. Just a little shout out to all the people that were on House of Jigsaw back in the day. If you were on House of Jigsaw right there, go ahead and put in the comments below, what your House of Jigsaw name was in there. And it's just a lot of fun, a lot of good memories there. Yeah, and we're talking about the box right now. So going back to the box, this actually really common fact. I actually bought the box that you'll see later in episode 20, if this episode comes out right now. I actually had that box for like over 15 years. It's actually a voter's box, and I actually spray painted it black, and it looks really cool. So if this commentary comes out and episode 20 part 2 is out, you'll see it. It'll make an appearance in episode 20 part 2, the box that we're referencing. But we decided to change it and just use 3 mailboxes, stuff like that you'll see in episode 5 we'll talk about. Oh, there's a green poster again.
Down, Mark. Just calm.
So yeah, you could tell my character trying to talk to Mark in that microphone and stuff like that. And like I say, going off Mark, he does a really good job here. Talk about what he believes in. He actually uses that avatar that you see right here with him and the Billy doll in one of his thumbnails for his videos. I think he's updated since then, but that was his thumbnail for the longest time. For those that follow Mark and his channel, I decided to use it here. And I think we're still trying to go ahead and develop a sense of what Jacob's character is, because we saw in 2 episodes, him talking right now. Essentially, I wanted the Jacob character to be someone that, wants answers to the truth, because, a history teacher, you want that feeling that you kind of remember and know all your backgrounds and understand both sides of everything. And that's essentially what Jacob does right here. He's taking the box. He's accepting the risk right now of trying to figure out and answer all the questions for the audience. And so that's kind of what, Jacob the character and Jacob the person you see right here talking right now kind of wants, where he kind of wants, to answer questions that all Saw fans have, because, the Saw franchise means a lot to all of us. You wouldn't be a fan of watching the show if you're not a fan of the Saw franchise, because you want to see things answered. You want to see questions answered that deep down that the films aren't really going to answer. They're not going to answer your favorite characters or your favorite plot threads and stuff like that. How can they go on? And this is just like a love letter to the franchise and its soap opera and world narrative, where, if I was given the keys to the Saw franchise and if I want to see stuff answered and stuff continued, then this is a way for my character to answer questions for the audience, such as, what happened to this character, what happened to this plot line. And I think creating the idea of going off the Jigsaw Rules website and taking off experts such as, Mark in this series that would know answers to this stuff about what happened to each character and story and plot thread. And it's me for the audience right there. Give it back. And like I said, my character it's kind of a little bit of me and a little bit of the Jacob character, like, wants this to answer. He wants these questions answered. He wants to know the truth. And of course, if you're in the Saw franchise, you know that sometimes the truth comes at a price. And unfortunately, Jacob may find out someday, but, this is a way for Jacob to get involved and go forward. So, and like this little warning that Mark gives Jacob here about, don't get too soaked up. Of course, as you see later in episode 5 and 6, how really wrapped up in this Jacob gets and try to answer. And it's a little bit of a warning out there to people that kind of want everything answered, because while you may go looking for something, you may not always like the answers that you get. But at the same time, the truth may come at a cost. And that is one of the taglines of one of our posts right there. So, guys, thank you so much. And we'll see you back in the next episode.